battle station.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google Blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
All right, on a very wet, very rainy, drive carefully on the highways, everybody in South Florida. On a very wet, rainy, Hurricane Eta, tropical storm day, I have a question for all of America. How can an individual, how can an organization, indeed, how can a conglomerate like the Democrat Party spend 4 years contesting an election that did nothing wrong? Nevertheless, this cabal, this Democrat cabal, spends 4 years utilizing the full-throated power of the federal government to the point of being treasonous. I have a question today for all Americans. How can an individual, an organization, or a party wrap themselves in a flag now, demanding that an individual who has the opportunity, the responsibility to exercise his constitutional rights, how could that same party that spent 4 years contesting a legitimate election now demand complete surrender by this individual they hate so much, this evil cabal? How could you hold two conflicting thoughts in your head at the same time, that I don't need a basis to contest his election, but our election, fraught with all types of problems, unknown, you would think, to the legacy media as they sidestep the factual information that's being laid out? How could an individual hold these competing, conflicting thoughts in their head? How is that humanly possible? Well, stay tuned today on the Trento extravaganza here on WNN 1470 AM on your dial, 95.3 on the 10th of November, 9:07 a.m. East Coast time in the morning. We're going to answer that perplexing question and other great questions that float around in the universe, because we have all the answers here. Why do we have all the answers? Because I have an amazing co-host who is not with me in studio today. She was a little under the weather, but you wouldn't know that by the looks of her right here.
There she is.
She is a volunteer with us. Nevertheless, she demands a full-time hairstylist, a full-time makeup artist, and a full-time masseuse to be prepared for the show. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Susie Gold. Welcome, Susie Gold, remotely.
Well,
Thank you so much, Tom. So good to be here, as always. Yeah, I had a bad cold, but it lasted one day and it's over. You know, it's funny because when you have a cold, the first thing people think is it COVID? And it was just an everyday average cold that you get seasonally. So thank goodness I'm well, and I'm glad to be here. And what's most important is I'm happy to be here as part of the discussion to really answer some of the questions that are floating out there. And I actually did call some dear friends who are active in the community, who have questions as well. And, I think we need to shed light on what's going on now with recounts and with voting irregularities. And where do we go from here? And I think it's through the leadership of the United West and other organizations that need to step forward and lead and guide us. So we got you, Tom Trento.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we're ready. We're ready for anything. And it's 1 week, ladies and gentlemen, since the amazing record-breaking election of the United States, of history, of our lifetime. And I am wearing, in honor of that, I'm not as nicely dressed as Susie Gold right there, but that's okay. She's the yin to my yang, I guess, or whatever. She's the The ladies love her. Even the men love her. You know, I mean, it's amazing. I have on my IDF shirt that we got in Israel, and I have it on for a specific purpose. Right now, you are already hearing ruminations and factual information about the Harris-Biden administration, if indeed they make it, and that's a question right now, notwithstanding the legacy media quickly announcing these people as the next administration and wanting to dust it over and move on, notwithstanding whether or not he will be certified on December 14th, which is the constitutional address approach to this. I have on an IDF shirt because the geopolitics of the Middle East are going to change dramatically, where we had for the past 4 years a strong horse mentality dealing with the Islamic world, projecting strength. The Islamic world reads that theologically as a time to step back and look what this President Trump accomplished in the Middle East. That is dramatically and diametrically going to change if the Harris-Biden administration comes in. I'm not making a mistake. I'm not putting Harris first by mistake. We all know, I think it's the worst kept secret in the world. And when you see Joe Biden do his little stunted run, where he's kind of forcing himself to run to say, hey, I got this. I'm young. I can do it. We know who's behind all of this. And sadly, Israel's going to be a target couched in the Democrat parlance and contemporary language of the day. Oh, we love Israel, but you know what? We got to separate that country into two countries. Oh, we love Israel, but maybe Mahmoud Abbas is right. Maybe the capital needs to go from Jerusalem back to Tel Aviv on the beach where the Islamic world likes it better. And you know what? If we get back in that Iran deal, the world will have greater peace than it's had right now for the past 4 years. So this shirt, 1 week after the election, is an alert to the policies that we spend a lot of time on in Israel and in the Middle East, dramatically and negatively going to change. We have two great guests today. We have Kylie Kremer coming up in a little bit, a young lady, daughter of Amy Kremer, who's very big in the Tea Party back in 2009. Kylie, I believe, is coming in from Tallahassee, Florida. She is involved in the caravan to stop the stealing of the vote. And on her way to Washington, D.C., she's going to call in a little bit, scheduled to. Bad weather, maybe up there too. And then we have a dear friend of ours, Ken Timmerman, who is multifaceted and is going to help us navigate exactly what's going on. Why? Because he wrote a book about a year ago, The Election Heist. Ken Timmerman wrote a book, The Election Heist, a thriller, a Tom Clancy type of novel. And he built into this book how the Democrat Party conspires and finagles and plans to steal the election from a president. And his fiction has become fact today. We're going to talk to him in a little bit. You ready for all this, Susie Gold?
Oh, it's going to be a very, very exciting show. We have great guests, and I know a lot of questions are going to be answered today. So this is going to be great.
Okay. Do we have Kylie with us?
We have both, actually.
All right. Let's put Kylie on first. I know she's got a very, very busy schedule today. Kylie, how are you? This is Tom Trento with Susie Gold, Jay Mark in the control room. You're in Tallahassee, I understand, right?
She needs to unmute herself.
Unmute yourself. How do you tell her that? I mean,
no, she can hear you, but we can't hear her.
If you can see me, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Kylie, somebody write her a note.
I'll text her.
Yeah, text her a note.
Go ahead.
This always happens. I mean, 80% of our guests forget to unmute themselves, but that's okay. We 9:13 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host, the Trento. We're coming up with a name like extravaganza, circus, something. We got to come up with something. 9:13, WNN 1470, 95.3, iHeartRadio worldwide. If you got the internet, go to iHeartRadio, look up WWNN 1470. You can listen anywhere in the world. Or, what we prefer, go to the United West theunitedwest.org, and you can watch. We're streaming on a variety of social media platforms. You can watch right there because we're really producing a television show that's broadcast in South Florida to over 5 million people. And over 5 million people voted for Donald Trump, by the way. So do we have Kylie yet, or we can go to Ken and come back to her?
She wants to know how to unmute herself.
The unmute, you gotta.
Okay, wait, we're gonna figure this out.
Go call her.
You call her. I'm going to talk to
Okay,
Ken.
all right.
No, I'm on.
Oh,
Can
here
y'all
we
hear me?
There she is.
There she is. Kylie.
It's not Kylie. It's Amy Kramer.
Oh, the mom. We got the mom. How you doing, Mom?
Right.
I'm good. How are you?
Great. We're doing great. Amy Kramer is a legend in the Tea Party movement back from 2009, got involved and has been involved in everything conservative, pro-Trump. Amy, your daughter's doing amazing work. Tell us a little bit about her caravan headed to Washington, D.C.
Well, thank you so much for having us on to talk about it. We're going to support our president to march for President Trump. This is outrageous what's going on. Everybody we talk to, they don't feel like that the election has been done fair and square, that there's cheating, and we have to stand up. You know, we need to make sure that every legal ballot is counted and every illegal one is cast to the side. We have to do that to protect our vote and for election integrity. So we did marches and rallies at state capitals last weekend, and quite frankly, they've been going on every day because people are so mad. But we're taking it to Washington. So on Saturday, we're having a march for Trump in Washington at Freedom Plaza, which is right across the street from the White House, 12 noon. And then we're going to march to the Supreme Court and rally there as well. And honestly, I think it's going to be huge. I think it could be historic. This is like Tea Party, times 100. We cannot keep up with people wanting more information, wanting to go. People are coming from across the country, caravanning, taking buses. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, Amy, the Tea Party was a phenomenal movement back then, and there were just thousands of people that initially got involved. Right now, we have 71 million people. I did a little study the other day. There's 220 countries and territories listed by the United Nations in the world, 220. And Donald Trump's vote count, 71 million, is more votes than 200 countries, and the population of 200 countries, including France, Italy, and England. That's amazing. An amazing number of people. Now, what does your caravan look like, and how can people get involved and join with you on the trip up in Washington?
Listen, this is just one thing I want to say is, this man has fought for us, and now it's time for us to fight for him. People, we can't do it. We have a commitment. It's too close to this. I mean, if there's ever been a time that we needed to show up, it is now. So if you support this president and you want election integrity, I beg you to please come to Washington this weekend. They can go to trumpmarch.com and get all the information there. And like I said, people are coming from across the country. We're leaving here in Atlanta. We're going to caravan from Atlanta early Thursday morning. So if anybody wants to meet us in Atlanta and go from Atlanta, we'd love to have you. I believe there's some caravans going from Florida. But look, all you got to do is, just grab a friend, grab your sister, your husband, whoever, and just come up. The best part about this is all the other, freedom-loving Americans, the MAGA movement, which is a movement based on love. And people are just so happy and just full of love and just want to celebrate our country. And so come join us, because we need to all link arms and stand together.
All right, Amy, we have on the screen, I know Susie Gold has a question for you too in a minute, but we have on our screen right now, March for Trump, Stop the Steal. So the whole idea of the march is to stop the steal, stealing the vote. And it's amazing. I opened up by saying, how can an individual have two conflicting views in his mind where he's on one side of the argument one day, then the next side of the argument, arguing against his own argument. But this is the leftist deplorable mind that we have. And it's noon on Saturday. So we want everybody to get there. Now, once the rally is over, what streets are you going to go down to start looting and smashing and burning and
Yeah,
pillaging?
I'm in for that.
Yeah, when does
Yeah.
that start?
Well, so I'm not sure where you start. Do you start at like Target or at Walmart? I'm not sure where you start because I've quite
I'm gonna go-
honestly never done that.
Best Buy is the best thing because it's getting close. I want to get some tech stuff. You know, I need some hard
Yeah,
drives
you
and
go
things
to
like that.
there,
Yeah, yeah.
And they
Yeah, I
boarded
mean,
up. Go ahead.
can you imagine if Trump had if they had projected Trump the winner? I mean, these cities would be burning right now. But there's no burning. There's no rioting. There's, I mean, it's just amazing that what they get away with and that the American people tolerate it. I mean, I think it's outrageous. And I think we're better than that.
It's completely outrageous. We're better than that. We know you have a busy schedule, but Susie Gold has a question for you. And we have a guest coming up, Ken Timmerman. You may know Ken.
I know Ken.
Do you? Ken, are you there? Say hello to Amy.
He's got to unmute himself.
Hey, you got to unmute yourself too, Ken.
Amy, I have a question for you while we wait for Ken. So I love what you're doing. I know that it's so important that we show support for our president, that we band together, and that this caravan is a phenomenal idea. I think more people need to be out waving flags. No, we don't burn buildings and we don't smash and destroy our own businesses. However, what is your ultimate goal? So I know that, you want to ensure that they don't steal the election. So are we looking for the Supreme Court to make the decision? Are we asking, let it go to the legislators and let's take it from there? What is the ultimate question when you get to DC?
Okay, so it's a two-pronged thing, actually. So at the same time that the DC march is going to be going on, there's also going to be marches, rallies in the state capitals of the battleground states. All of those battleground states have Republican legislatures, except for Nevada. Nevada is Democrat, but all of the other states have Republican legislatures. And what we want them to do is we want them to audit the vote. This morning, one of our state reps has called on for the Republicans in Georgia to come into a special session and audit the vote. And that's what we want these other state legislatures to do as well. But what we're going to Washington for is because we do believe that it is going to end up at the Supreme Court. And I think we need to have a presence there. We need to stand for the rule of law. But also, our president, he has fought for us like no one else has. And we all know that if this were any other Republican, they would have already conceded, tuck tail, and run. They'd be done, right? I mean, we know that there's some funny business going on in these states. He is our lion. I can't imagine us ever having somebody else like him. And we need him to stay there and fight. And the reality is that the world is against him right now. The pressure, not only from our media and, the swamp monsters, but internationally too. I mean, from leaders around the world and from international press. And so while he is a fighter and we know he's a tough guy, at the same time, he is a human being, and there has to be a little part of him, that's fragile, and we just want him to know we're here with you, Mr. President. Do not back down. We are standing with you, and we want transparency, and we want to protect our vote, and we will stand with you as long as it takes. Look, this country spent 4 years looking for PP tape, right? I mean, December 14th, that's when the Electoral College meets. We can wait till December 14th. There's no need to rush it. Let the process play out. Let it be done right. And then, the chips will fall where they may.
All right.
Yeah.
Amy Kremer, you're doing the Lord's work. We appreciate it. Ken, why don't you say hello to Amy before we let her go, and we'll pick up with you. You there, Ken?
I am there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey,
Amy, I remember a cold October morning when we were together in Frederick, Maryland, when you came up to endorse me in my congressional campaign 8 years ago. What a treat that was, and what fantastic work you've been doing since then. God bless you.
well, thank you, dear. And it's good to hear you. And I hope you're doing well. And if you can, come join us on Saturday.
I won't be able to get up. I'm down in sunny northern Florida. Well, not quite sunny today.
Oh, my heart breaks for you.
I haven't missed Maryland a day, I've got to say.
All right,
Amy, you take care.
Real quick, Tom.
Thank you.
So let me get the plug.
Yeah, here.
Be there. March for Trump for Stop the Steal, Washington, D.C., November 14th, 2020, 12 noon. That's marchfortrump.com. Stop the Steal. Marchfortrump.com. Stop the Steal.
Well,
no, not March for Trump. Not March for Trump. Trump March.
TrumpMarch.com. TrumpMarch.com.
Mark,
TrumpMarch.com.
Mark, if you're gonna do the commercial, you got to get the right. Mark gave the Twitter handle March for Trump, hashtag March for Trump, but the website is TrumpMarch.com. Yeah, that's a great name,
right.
TrumpMarch.com. Trump March. Go there, folks. And Amy, next week, we'll get in touch with you and we'll have you on the show next week to figure out or let us know what took place, okay?
Okay. Thanks, guys and dolls. I appreciate y'all.
Take care. Amy Kremer. Tom Trento, your host, with Susie Gold, my co-host who's remote. You're doing a great job out there remotely. You know, you look like you're nice and comfortable.
I know how to work this computer.
There you go. That's an accomplishment. 9:25 in the morning. If you're just tuning in today, 1 week after this infamous election, we're following up on it. We have a very special guest coming up in a minute here, and we're going to be following up all week because there's a tremendous amount of confusion as to, was this thing stolen? How was it stolen? Is he going to be the president? He's not going to be the president. We're going to work on all of that. We're going to hold everyone's hand, take a deep breath, be fact-driven, look at this situation, and then adjust, adapt, and overcome, whatever it may be, good, negative, positive. And to help us walk through all of this right now is Ken Timmerman. Ken, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Very, very good. If I'm not mistaken, you were exiled for a while, weren't you?
We were caught for almost 5 months in France during the initial lockdown, the COVID lockdown from March until mid-July. We got back here in mid-July, but I tell you, I can't complain. It was the south of France. I was logging most of the time and taking care of my olive trees. I farm olives there. And had a lot of stuff to do. So I was actually in great shape when I got home.
All right. Well, you're talking to a connoisseur of olives. I'm an Italian olive lover, so we'll have to talk offline about the olives you're growing. But those are amazing trees. You've been to Israel, and we go to the Mount of Olives and see these trees that are, 1,000, 2,000 years old and just unbelievable. Give us one lesson from the olive tree that we can take home and apply in our lives.
Be patient. What you do this year will have repercussions next year and the year after.
Oh, that's good advice. That's
good olive advice.
In this storm, yeah, good olive advice. All right, Ken, what was the predicate that made you sit down and say, I got to write a fiction book about an election being stolen? And walk us through the process. And on election night, when you saw what was going on in the subsequent days between then and now, what's going on in your head?
Well, it was actually, I'm going to get to how I got there in just a second, but it was actually about 3 days ago. I think it was on Friday night, Saturday, that I began to pick up stories, or they began to come out of both Michigan and Georgia about software, quote, glitches that had changed votes. And I said, oh my gosh, that is exactly the scenario that I developed in the Election Heist, which, although it is a fiction, it's not a fantasy. It's based on many years of research I did into the vulnerabilities of our electronic voting systems. I was
Ken, real quick, I just want to highlight that big point you made. That glitch that you're talking about is not a 3,000 vote glitch. That's a 6,000 vote glitch because
we're gonna get into the details. If you could pull up, Mark, the Election Heist, the cover of his book. Go ahead, Ken. Continue.
Yeah, and so I've been researching this for a number of years. I first was motivated to do so when I was a candidate I was a Republican nominee for Congress in Maryland in 2012. And some of our poll watchers noticed some very strange things happening with electronic voting machines. At that time, it was the old touchscreen machines, which are notoriously easy to hack. That's something I learned later as we were investigating them. And we went and did interviews. We interviewed people who had voted on specific machines, and the numbers just didn't add up. There was one particular machine, I think 100 votes. I got 24 votes on the machine. There were 24 Republicans in that district, or I got 28 votes, something like that. We called up all the independents, and 60% of them had voted for me, and it did not add up. And I said, well, there's something's going on. So we went to the supervisor of election, got absolutely nowhere. I started to do research online, had then found there was a 2002 study done by one of our national nuclear labs that found that these particular machines could be hacked in a matter of a minute, 2 minutes, perhaps. And from there was kind of more research. And I finally wrote the book last fall in the autumn of 2019 in France, as well as parts of it here in Florida. And the book was finished and going into print in February. So all of this, the scenario, the election night, back and forth, not knowing who's going to be the president, and then the recount afterwards, and the hacking of the electronic voter systems, all of that was was written down, was in print. As of February of 2020, and now I see this is happening exactly as I had written it in a fiction, right down to the way that the supervisors of elections have begun to realize what's happening. It takes an alert supervisor of election to look at the numbers and say, there's something not right here. That's what happened in Antrim County, Michigan on Friday night. And that supervisor of election realized that the numbers in a Trump county could not possibly have gone for Biden. That's when she discovered there was a computer glitch.
All right, I want to get into the details of that. And Jay Mark here and Susie Gold have questions. And we're going to try to, with the time we have with you, we're going to try to make sense out of all the stuff that's going on out there. I mean, I'm getting so many emails and texts. Look at this over here. Look at this system here. Look at this fraud over here. The National Guard is counting votes right now. I mean, things all over the place. But I want to establish your background a little bit. I think the audience needs to know that you're just not a guy growing olive trees in France and hanging out in Florida. It sounds like you're a trust fund baby, just enjoying the good life in the 1980s. You're a journalist. You're an investigative journalist. You've been nominated for a Nobel Prize, but in the 80s, you were working for the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and you became an expert on Middle Eastern affairs, particularly on the arms issues. And then in, I think it was 1982, you found yourself in the arms of Fatah, the Lebanese Islamic terrorists. You got kidnapped and you were held prisoner for what, a month, something like that, Ken?
Hostage during the 1982 war, right, for 24 days.
And we're talking to somebody right now who writes on these issues, not from the ivory towers or from CNN with their bonehead subject matter experts. I mean, Ken was in the grasp of the enemy. It's a whole nother show, but give us a minute or two on what it was like being a hostage during the Lebanese War in 1982.
Well, I was there as a war correspondent, and which I continued to do for a number of years afterwards in the Middle East, covering different wars. But they put me in an underground cell initially with about 20 other people. The cell was 15 feet by 20 feet, 20 of us inside. And as time went on, the building collapsed on top of us from the constant bombardments. There's one period we were bombed day in and day out for 3 days straight by land, air, and sea. And the building was 8 stories when we went out. And when I got out, by the grace of God and my Savior, Jesus Christ, it was one floor and pancakes on top of us. So it was not an easy experience. It certainly made me grow up real fast, made me recognize my faith in the Lord, and also made me recognize that freedom is not free. And I was willing to do extraordinary things at that point to regain my freedom. Freedom is the most precious thing that we have, this gift from God. And I was willing to die to preserve it.
Oh, amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Timmerman. It's 9:34 in the morning. Tom Trento here with Susie Gold, Jay Mark. And Ken was relating a little bit about his experience. What is the thesis of your book, The Election Heist?
So the book is, again, it's a fiction. It follows a Democrat congressman in Maryland who faces for the first time in his life a solid Republican, Hispanic, well-funded, wealthy, handsome, charismatic, who has his own platform. He's got a radio network in suburban Maryland and basically is the king of the barrio. He's very popular. And this guy is just walking all over this Democrat incumbent who's a bit prissy and a bit entitled and married to Bulmer aristocracy, but pretends that he's, she pretends that she works for a labor union, but she comes from one of the wealthiest families in Baltimore. And so anyway, so it starts off with that election campaign, which is kind of funny and fun. At one point, that Democrat candidate realizes that he cannot win. By Labor Day, he's way behind in the polls. He cannot win. He goes to his Uncle Vinny, who is the vice presidential nominee for the Democrats, and say, "Hey, I got problems. Can you help me?" And Uncle Vinny sets him up with this.
Come on, Uncle Vinny. Come on.
Come on. What stereotype?
Vinny, what? Is it an Italian name? Is it an Italian name?
His name T. Claudius Granger, the man of no first name.
Okay.
He's a black lawyer from Chicago who spent time in prison with the black nominee for.
You have a fertile mind, Ken. You have a fertile mind.
So this is all fun, right? This is all fun. It's a fun scenario. It's a fun story. The characters are really, in some cases, they are hilarious. The dialogue is very fast paced. So it's a very quick and easy read and fun to read. Now, until you get to the real meat of the story, which is how they hack the election systems. So this member of Congress, he goes to Granger. Granger sets the IT guys up, and you see that there's this war room behind Capitol Hill on 9th Street on Pennsylvania Avenue, right next door to my friend Dave Bossie's office at Citizens United. Oh, wow. I did that one too. And down in that underground war room is where they flip the secret switch. So they have ways, and I describe it in the book. It's very detailed, and this is a scenario that I built up through interviews with many cybersecurity experts around the country, including people inside the U.S. government who are looking into this, who helped me to devise this scenario because they knew what they were looking at. And so you find out that at this war room, they managed to infiltrate the so-called secure servers of the voting machine companies, and they send software patches to voting districts around the country, including the one in Maryland, but around the country, to flip the switch for the Democrat presidential nominee. The night of the election, you have an alert election supervisor down in Florida, because I wanted to get Florida in my story, who says, this is very strange. John Rutherford should be winning by more than this. Did John do something during the campaign? And she scratches her head, looks around. No, John didn't do anything weird during the campaign. And she starts to pull the threads. And she said, this is just, it can't possibly be that he's down in the low 50s. He normally wins by high 60s, 70%. And so she looks into it, does a manual recount of a precinct. It comes out completely different from the election night tabulation by machine. She does another precinct, comes up different. Then she said, oh, crap, we've got a real problem. So she then starts to talk to other election supervisors. They realize that the tabulators have been infected somehow. They don't know how. And they realize that the only way to discover it is to do manual recounts. And so they do a manual recount. And of course, in the end, everything turns out fine. But that's where we are today. Right now, we are at the stage. So that's my plot. Right now, we're at the stage of the plot where the election supervisor now it's not Florida, it's in Michigan, has discovered that something strange has happened. And she has already gone back and done the manual recount and found that 6,000 votes were flipped by a secret switch. 6,000 votes were flipped by a secret switch from Trump to Biden. And it had Biden winning that red county. So she went back and looked at it, did the manual recount, realized that was fake. And those 6,000 votes were then reattributed to Donald Trump, and he won that county. Now we find that it's happening in counties in Georgia as well. And in Georgia, they discovered that, and this is all public now. You can find this. I did a story at Newsmax over the yesterday. You can find this. Go to my website, kentimmerman.com. You'll see a minute and a half video where I really describe this succinctly. But in Georgia, they've got they found that there was an upload the day of the election or the day before the election on their secure server in these two counties, apparently from the voting machine company with a patch. In other words, they altered the software. Now, that, as the supervisor of election said quite rightly, that never, ever, ever happens. They never put a patch in the software the day of the election or the day before the election, for one simple reason, is that these election systems must be certified by law. They have to be tested ahead of time to make sure that they're not flipping votes. And in that certification process, it is public, it's open. You have Democrats and Republicans who are there. And so and that is done like 2 weeks before the election. So you can't upload a patch and alter the software after it's been certified. That is fraud. So that's what's happening.
I can't. Hang on right there, because we got a million questions here.
But I want to get on this patch thing, because just solidify this. I'm a network engineer, so I understand exactly what you're talking about. But for those who don't know what a patch is or a switch is, like you're kind of analogously referring to it, it's actually rewriting the software. You're rewriting the software, just like your iPhone. When it reboots your software, you're getting a whole new upgrade of software. And you can't do that just before you don't upload a new software program just as you have 1,000 people on your plane getting ready to take off on the runway. You don't do that. That's exactly I'm upgrading my whole computer system on my airplane. Okay, but I've got 1,000 passengers on board. Should we test that? No, just go. It'll be okay. So there's something that the timing of that upload is highly, highly critical, because you don't do that.
All right. Susan, what do you have?
It is an indicator. So in the intelligence business, I've spent a lot of time with people in the intelligence business. You call this indicators and warnings. This is an indicator and warning of something bad that has happened.
All right. Well, again, there's a lot of ways to go on this, and it's 9:42 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host. Our special guest, Ken Timmerman. Ken, give out your website. The name of the book is The Election Heist. It's a fiction, but not a fantasy, because the plot that Ken has laid out is actually playing out. How can people get your book? How can they reach you?
It's real simple. kentimmerman.com. It's just my name. And that's my website, kentimmerman.com. If you Google my name, you'll see I'm all over the place. You can read my columns at the Epic Times. I used to have them at Fox News. That's kind of, they don't seem to like my columns too much.
I know. That's they're changing.
Max for many, many years. I've done a lot of, you'll see me at Newsmax TV this week. I'll be with them quite a bit because they're all over the story. And I got to give them a lot of credit. Newsmax TV has been one of the few major media not to call the election for Joe Biden, which, by the way, is what the Constitution says. There's only two ways that Joe Biden becomes president-elect, and that's if Donald Trump concedes, which he's not done, or if the states certify the election results in his favor, which is not going to happen for weeks, if it happens at all. And right now, the states where he's been winning that put him over the top are being contested, including just last night, Pennsylvania. Real Clear Politics pulled back Pennsylvania. They had called Pennsylvania for Biden. They've pulled back that call.
This is an amazing development, ladies and gentlemen. I got it late last night. Somebody sent it to me. Real Clear Politics, which is a substantial organization and for the most part objective. They had called Pennsylvania for Joe Biden. They pulled it back last night based upon, obviously, the lawsuits that have been filed. They probably found some merit to it, but that pullback changed the vote total, didn't it, Ken?
Yeah, well, it brought it back to 259. So Biden is at 259. Trump is somewhere 217 or whatever it is, because they refused to call Alaska. They refused to call Georgia. In his favor. They refused to call North Carolina. But look, my message to everybody here is just be patient. Do not despair. Let not your heart be troubled. This is in the Lord's hands. It's also in the hands of a lot of good lawyers.
Yeah.
The Lord says, keep faith in me, but make sure you work.
Get some good lawyers. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And work hard and make sure you've got good lawyers. and the president's got good lawyers, and they're on the ground. Sidney Powell is looking at the electronic switch, at the scenario that I talk about. They've also identified 450,000 very mysterious ballots that were only voted for Joe Biden and have no down ballot races indicated at all. And it would appear that these ballots are those that came in the dead of night on election night and flipped Michigan and flipped Wisconsin. And we're going to flip Pennsylvania. The number of ballots that she found is greater of these, no down ballot races just for Biden. The number of those ballots is more than the margin that Biden is said to have won by in all of those states. So those ballots alone, if they were disqualified, would make Donald Trump, put Donald Trump back in the White House for 4 more years.
Yeah, that's a very important point.
Yes,
Susie,
yes.
you're up next. I know everybody has questions for you, Ken, but what Ken just said, and this has been established, this is a fact that the 450,000 have been found.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
It is a fact. And by the way, just one more thing before we go into the detail of this, as I say in the book, and the election heist, the Democrats are going to use all of the above. They're going to use everything. They're going to use the secret switch where they can. They're going to stuff the ballot boxes when they have to. They're going to put in these ballots that you just saw there in the dead of night. It's a nuclear war of silver bullets. A nuclear war of silver bullets.
Good point. Very, very good point. Before our audience, 946, if you're listening in your automobile, if you're watching on theunitedwest.org, Ken Timmerman, investigative journalist who wrote a fiction book, The Election Heist, that's turning out to be very factual. We have him as a guest. We're working our way through here. He just said 450,000 ballots have been found. I saw that. I read that. That was where? What state was that?
In all of it. In Pennsylvania.
Oh,
in Wisconsin.
okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but the uniqueness about it,
North Carolina, Arizona.
there's no down ballot, which means only the president. They voted only for Joe Biden and didn't vote for anything else. Who in the world does that other than people in a hurry to get a vote total up?
Fast.
Yeah, exactly. Susie Gold, what do you got for Ken?
Okay, Ken, my question for you. Here you are, an acclaimed author who wrote a book that was prophetic. What do you see then as you continue the storyline of today's events? How would your playbook be written from this day forward regarding this election?
Well, now it becomes a detective novel as the supervisors of elections and the president's legal team start to pull these threads. They pull the threads. We've discovered these ballots. We've discovered this software patch, and they keep on pulling and they keep on pulling, and the whole Democrat charade is going to fall apart. It's a house of cards. They've got the media as willing accomplices to try to enforce their lie. They have gaslighting us. That's really what it comes down to. The media and the Democrats are gaslighting us into believing that Joe Biden won in a massive blue wave on Tuesday night. And you just look around and you see that's not true. The Republicans picked up 5 seats in Congress. We've defeated at least one incumbent senator in Alabama. And if the election is recounted in Michigan, we may have picked up the 2nd seat with John James, who's an amazing candidate, extraordinarily popular, a Black U.S. Army veteran who was a pilot, I believe, an Army helicopter pilot in Iraq. So, Republicans have gotten gains all across the board. There is no blue wave. I don't even think that Joe Biden had 4 million more votes than Donald Trump, frankly. I think that those votes, many of those votes, are going to turn out to have been fabricated.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. The one of the to take the contrarian view here, one of the arguments is on the CNN LOL, that program over there, MS-13, NBC, those organizations, they're beside themselves with Donald Trump, the great disruptor, now disrupting the civil process. World leaders have called to congratulate Joe Biden. Donald Trump is destabilizing the global community. What is he doing? He's moving in this horrible way. They're beside themselves. I was thinking about it. I was thinking, if this was a bunch of nonsense, if there was no substance to the argument of voter fraud, why not just say, let the nitwit play it out? Who cares? He's going to make more of a fool out of himself. There's a tremendous amount of worry on the other side that there will be sufficient fraud to overturn the election. That's the key issue. With all the elements of fraud we're hearing on the left, they're saying, even if we stipulate there's anomalies in various areas, it's not sufficient to overturn it. Let's get on with this. How do you answer that, Ken?
Well, that's what they say. That's their argument. And it's going to be up to the president's lawyers to prove that they are wrong, to show that these large quantities of ballots that are just voted for Joe Biden and do not have any down ballot candidates. And they've got to convince the courts that these are illegal ballots, illegitimate ballots, and do not deserve to be counted, because if they are illegitimate, if they have been filled out by poll workers or by Democrat Party activists, they are canceling out the votes of legitimate voters, of real voters. In Pennsylvania alone, they've discovered my good friend J. Christian Adams has discovered 21,000 dead people on the voter rolls. How many of those have actually voted? Maybe a couple of hundred, maybe a couple of thousand. We don't know the full answer to that yet. How many people who moved out of the state have voted? How many people have double voted in one state and a second state? And then again, how many of those ballots were stuffed at the last minute when the Democrats realized at 3:00 in the morning of November 4th, they realized that they weren't getting the huge margins that they expected in the predominantly Black inner cities, in Detroit, in Chicago, in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, Detroit, Philadelphia, in particular, and Atlanta. And that's when they changed. You had this huge influx of votes in the dead of night, all of them for Biden. Look, I'll tell you another indicator in Warner. Another indicator here. Look at Miami-Dade County here in Florida. That's when the Democrats started to freak out, when they saw that Trump won 200,000 votes more in Miami-Dade than he won in 2016. It was predominantly from the Hispanic community, but also from the Black community. Cuban Americans and Venezuelan Americans who understand the price of freedom and understand the devastation when big government takes freedom away from you, as they did in Cuba and Venezuela. They came out massively for Donald Trump, and the Democrats didn't know what to do. They were counting on a big vote bank in Miami-Dade County, as well as Palm Beach and Broward, to win Florida, and they didn't. And ultimately, we all know the result. Trump won Florida by over 3%. I was predicting that too, by the way, in the 2 weeks before the election. I said would win by at least 2, possibly 3%. We won by 3.5.
By 3.5, and we ran a 2-year campaign mobilizing Jews and Christians, evangelicals and observant Jews, to vote. We're trying to get 1,000,001. We really only needed 400,000, but we factored in fraud, which we kind of got away from with DeSantis and correcting it. And a couple of days before, I said we're going to win by between 300 and 400,000 votes. It was 350,000 or so. We were on the job, Ken. The United West. We were here. Mark, you got a question?
Yeah, Ken, you obviously wrote the book in a happy ending story where the candidate wins. How does the story end, and in a negative way, the way you see it, how they could stop the legal process and what scenarios.
Yeah, how do we get screwed?
How do we
question.
get
Well,
screwed?
okay, I don't want to give too much of a spoiler alert to my book, but I
Okay.
will say that there is a mixed ending. Trump winds up getting reelected because in the states that count, the supervisors of elections and the courts finally allow his team to uncover the fraud. But the congressional candidate in Maryland, where the courts are not as friendly and where the supervisors of elections are corrupt, the candidate does not win. So that's the scenario. We need for the president to pull this out and for the truth to emerge. We need to have lawyers and courts, especially the courts, the judges, who allow this process to unfold. So you've had some of the lawsuits already have been thrown out of court, and that's a problem. I expect that the GOP lawyers are going to appeal all of those cases, if necessary, all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they should.
And does that look? Does
All
that
right.
process look at any stage that it could be positive before the Supreme Court, or is it all negative to the Supreme Court?
Look, let me see. I'm looking at my calendar. Today's Tuesday, right? They filed the first lawsuit in Michigan yesterday, Monday. In lawsuit terms, this is very, very early in the game. But Rudy Giuliani has said they've got 2,000 witnesses. I've been going through that Michigan lawsuit a bit this morning. I haven't had time to read it all the way through, but they've got many affidavits, statements from witnesses that they've incorporated into the complaint in Michigan, which detail all kinds of shenanigans. I mean, it's just unbelievable the stuff that the Democrats thought they could get away with. Training poll workers to reject Republican ballots, to misinform voters of how to vote, training poll workers to take inner city voters to the poll booth and then tell them how to fill out their ballot. Oh yeah, you got to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala. Just unbelievable stuff. Completely illegal.
And then illegal, and we're out of time, ladies and gentlemen, but illegal on a federal level. These are federal crimes that they're breaking.
Criminal crime. Yes, they are criminal offenses.
They are criminal offenses. Look, we're gonna pick up tomorrow. We won't have Ken with us tomorrow, but maybe next week when we get a little more clarity on what's going on, we'll get you back, Ken. But we're gonna pick up tomorrow with the fact that regardless of what happens, this is going to be one of the greatest exposés of fraud by the Democrat Party in an organized fashion that you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be an amazing demonstration of, you talk about systemic racism, a nonsensical term. This is systemic fraud within the Democrat Party, and you're going to see it play out right before your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Ken Timmerman, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I got about 30 seconds.
This book. I got to get this book. Yeah.
We're all going to get the book. Give us a 30-second admonition going forward for the next excruciating month.
Well, patience, watch the lawsuits, and for the future, the one way to really prevent voter fraud is voter ID that's strictly enforced. We need a federally mandated standard of voter ID, the same way as we have real ID in our driver's licenses. The states then apply it in their own ways, but they have to meet a federal standard. We need the same thing with voter ID. The only reason not to have voter ID, to cheat.
Voter fraud. That's right. All right, Ken Timmerman, thank you very, very much. You take care, and I want some good olive oil from France,
I got to get there to harvest it. I can't get back.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great show.
Good job.